right? They need to know that their credits are going to apply and that there's a specific goal and outcome as a result of their experience, and that there's going to be a person that was going to guide them. In most cases, like I said, there's, you can go on a program like SIT semesters and year abroad programs where very experientially based. You do some language work, you have some coursework, and then you go out in the field.
Right.
And you figure it out and come back and report back. So, but most programs are highly structured, and I think that, the goals and outcomes are more academically focused. The gap year tends to be more, what am I trying to do with my life? Where do I want to be when I study abroad? Maybe it's a stepping stone to study abroad when they're in university. Now I traveled this region of the world, and I kind of honed in on this particular area. Maybe to explore that more in my academics.
Right. Okay. So, do you think it's you wouldn't advise one over the other? It's just kind of a personality thing.
Very much a personal thing. I mean, ideally, I would encourage every student to stretch out and eke out every ounce of travel and cross-cultural learning that they can. But, for some students, a gap year would be completely inappropriate. It would be dangerous.
Right.
They just, it also has to do with maturity level. Some people just would not know how to navigate that.
Right.
And it's interesting, too, because, data tells us that the human brain is not finished developing. And, a certain part of it is not the part that kind of helps you deal with logic and reasoning, and the part that kind of triggers, the what is the word I'm looking for? Spontaneity. That's the part that the 20-year-old brain really relies on is the spontaneity. It doesn't rely yet on the reason part of the brain, and that's why there's a lot of. That's why I will always be employed, because there are always going to be issues with young people going abroad because, frankly, their brain hasn't finished developing until they're in their mid-20s, and, some people just haven't practiced those skills enough yet.
Right. So I was looking over the speakers that you have available, and how did you pick them, and, what do you think is the most important part of what they're portraying?
Sure. The answer to your question is really simple. I picked them because they inspired me personally.
Okay.
I know all of them personally. I would say with the exception of Ibrahim. I don't know him as well, but I know him very well through somebody else.
Okay.
But all of these people are people who have, made me pay attention and made me days later think about the work that they do, and have helped shape aspects of my ongoing path of global citizenship. The speaker series started with, with my sort of stumbling upon the 30 Mosques guys. And they were going to be in the area that I had literally just moved to. And I caught up with them and interviewed them and participated. I don't know if you saw that particular blog posting. In fact, actually, if you go to today's posting, there's a link back to the original posting I did about them. And today's posting is actually a really good thing for you to read over because, it's specifically about my reflections on the 30 Mosques project.
Okay.
And, how I've kind of learned and grown from knowing them. And it really came out of that. I walked away from, a few hours with Aman and Bassam and meeting these people in this mosque and hanging out with the women there in particular and some children. And I walked away inspired. I wanted to, share a message about Islamophobia and what nonsense it is, and how the reality is that 99% of people who have an issue with Muslims and Islam in America, anywhere else in the world, frankly, have never. My three questions are: have you ever been to a mosque? Have you ever spoken to a Muslim person? And what is the source of the information you receive about that population? And it tends to be major media.
Right.
And what I say to people is, until you've done the first two things at least, and then at least switched up your news source, you know, you really can't comment on that population. And they inspired me so much that I started thinking about my work for many years, sitting behind a desk at a college.
Mm-hmm.
And the work is very cyclical when you work in academia. You know what's going to happen in the fall. It's going to be like a sprint. And then the spring is kind of a little bit more like a marathon, and you know when African or Black History Month is, and you know when the Study Abroad Fair is, and you know when International Ed Week is, and you kind of plan your schedule. And I thought, well, a lot of people are in this same job for their benefits for many years, and you know, there are budget cuts, especially in the last few years, where they can't go to conferences. There's only so much you can do virtually. Sometimes you just need to get out there and see people and meet people, and you need to feel inspired so you can go back to your desk and really shake things up. And I just felt like there wasn't a really easy, I hadn't ever known of an easy place to kind of say, wow, I need a cool international speaker. I need someone who's going to, you'll see in my blog posting today, I wrote, what I love about Aman and Bassam is that they inspire people to turn off their cell phones or not look at their cell phones for a whole 90 minutes when they're talking.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have to say is so much more inspiring than whatever's on your email and whatever's on your Facebook page that day. For that 90 minutes at least, they have that ability to wow you and to move you so deeply. And so that's really where it came from. I felt like it was meeting a need.
Mm-hmm.
These speakers range, they all have to have an international component. And the one that might not be as obvious is the Roberta Taylor,
Mm-hmm.
who does a retirement workshop, you know, planning for retirement. And the reality is people in my field are sometimes being forced to retire earlier than they'd like. They often don't have a plan, and they're often people who've traveled, may or may not have a partner,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of want to think about how to incorporate that into their work, you know, their retirement plan.
Okay.
So she may not be as obvious. I don't know that I've really written it that way, that it's really, her work is really going to be specifically for international educators, but everybody has an international message, and the common message I think that they all have can be broken down into a very simple statement. It's about getting out of your comfort zone.
Right.
And, you know, Michael Despinis, who does this incredible presentation on the American Dream and the World's Nightmare,
Mm-hmm.
he encouraged you to think about when you throw a piece of garbage away, where does it go? And how
Right.
can you do something differently? And that's really uncomfortable for a lot of people to think about changing that pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Carrie Wagner, I mean, she lived in Uganda for 3 years with International Habitat for Humanity, and then she lived in South Africa, and she was a trainer for that for many years. You know, you want to be out of your comfort zone. Go to Uganda for 3 years and pick worms out of your husband's back. Deal with a culture where women are just not going to ever really be treated the same as you would ever experience at home.
Mm-hmm.
Deal with being a minority for the first time abroad for years, and you know, being the person who stands out and how uncomfortable that is.
Right.
So it's really a message about getting out of your comfort zone and doing something that challenges you, and then it makes you, it helps, you know, those are the experiences where you grow.
Right.